And we're back. This is the Now Morning Show. We're so happy to have you with us. Carrie, we are going across to Tobago, our favorite place.
Virtually, unfortunately.
I know, but anything right now. I'm getting a whiff of the Tobago air.
Yeah, we'll take what we could get, right?
Because we have the Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance and the Economy, Assemblyman Mr. Joel Jack on the line. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. I feel
Good
I'm getting the sense of Tobago right here with us in the studio.
Yes, so good morning to all of Trinidad. Good morning to all of Tobago. And it's sunny across in Tobago. And as the Prime Minister announced on Saturday,
yes,
the beaches are open. We are open for business. Our restaurants, our hotels are up and running and are waiting all of our dear friends from Trinidad to come across to the sister isle.
Well, I actually got an invitation, to come across on Friday, but I'll see how that goes.
And once you come across, please don't hesitate to call.
All right. Well, let's get down to business because on Monday, the THA Fiscal 2020-2021 budget was presented, and I noticed some jump out areas, education, innovation and energy, $525.6 million, and health, wellness and family development, $811.7 million estimates. Are those your priority areas for 2020-2021?
Well, definitely. And when you look at the overall budget package for the island of $4.71 billion, I've outlined a fairly comprehensive package. One, we took stock of our achievements over the past 3 years. And secondly, we outline a program of work moving forward for the current fiscal into the next term from 2021 and beyond. What is also unique and important for us to take note of in this budget is that we had to treat with the issues surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic and as to how we stimulate economic activity and as to how we deal with and implement all the measures that are necessary for economic recovery.
Yes.
Because in terms of the sectors impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, the tourism sector, most importantly, they felt the full brunt of the pandemic with the closures of the border and as well the limitations with respect to inter-island travel. And the issue is how do we ensure that the tourism sector and all the other sectors that they receive the necessary support during this fiscal period moving forward.
And that was my next question. What plans are in place? Because I know that having lived in Tobago, having had a business in Tobago, I know that, there are peaks and troughs, especially around the travel and tourism sector. And there have been some efforts with regard to domestic tourism, the Heritage Festival, the Jazz Festival, and so on. But with COVID-19, is it that you have to rely solely on domestic tourism? What's in place to generate the revenue that surely is going to take a dip?
Well, definitely. In terms of the tourism sector, because of the closures of the border, one, and the challenge with and the slowdown in international travel, we have seen a virtual halt to the tourism sector, and most of the hotels have followed their employees and have remained closed for some time. And the issue is how do we provide the necessary support to the sector to ensure that those businesses can reopen as quickly as possible, and then they can start generating income and employment on the island. And what we have done is to launch a $50 million tourism support and grant upgrade program to the sector, and that during the period of the closure and the slowdown, that those businesses can invest and they can spruce up their property so that when, as anticipated sometime during the early winter season or late winter season, we can see some measure of international air arrival coming in. And as well, during this period, immediately as we enter phase 4 of the opening up of the economy, that we can see an increase in domestic travel. So most definitely we had depending on the domestic market
Yes.
during the immediate period to ensure the survival of the Tobago tourism sector. And we have launched a staycation, or we will be launching a staycation campaign
Yeah.
to ensure that we provide all the necessary, that we put all the systems in place to ensure that persons in Trinidad can, who might be looking for, holiday or during this period, that they have various options. So let me say that, as I stated earlier, that we're ready. And there are some unique options in Tobago, from your cocoa reefs to Mount Irving to Magdalena. And then you have the community tourism model in Castara. We have, and Buku, where persons can come, and where they can enjoy that community tourism activity. So that, for example, in Castara, you can have someone come and cook for you. Enjoy the real richness of nature. For the nature lovers, there's bird watching, trails to hike. So all in all, the tourism sector, we provide the necessary support, as we have done in addition to the $50 million grant program.
Yeah.
We have also provided additional funding of $4 million to the ancillary sector, so that businesses that work in the sector, such as the tour guides and the dive shops, and those persons who are involved in wedding planning and events, that we have provided support to the ancillary sector from the Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah.
Additionally, sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and additionally, through our enterprise assistance loan and grant programs, we have provided support to the wider SME community, initially of $5 million, and we have, depending on how that initial $5 million is utilized, we have also identified another $5 million tranche to provide the necessary support to the SME sector. So taken together, we're looking roughly at $10 million additionally, in additional support to the wider SME sector.
Deputy Chief Secretary, COVID-19 has demonstrated just how vulnerable countries that rely on travel and tourism, how vulnerable their economies are. And we knew this with regard to Tobago, as I said, having lived there. Any thoughts on diversification? I noticed the significant amount in education, innovation, and energy, and well, of course, health, wellness, and family development, especially given what we're going through. But with regard to innovation projects or activities that can happen on island, or perhaps agriculture, any of the other areas that perhaps the island can diversify to help balance the shock from something like this, should it happen again?
And Lisa, you're so correct, and that is what we have attempted to do as in terms of sound economic policy, and in terms of some economic planning. We have attempted to move to depend not on a single source, and that is tourism. And if you look at the composition of the island's economy, the structure, outside of government expenditure, which is roughly 45%, the financial services sector contributes approximately 25%, and then you have the tourism sector. What we have attempted to do, investments in EDCUT, is to ensure that we diversify the Tobago economy. And in terms of looking towards the future, we have outlined in detail our plans to utilize ICT as an enabler of socioeconomic development, and that is why we, outline in detail our plans to construct a Tier 3 data center in Tobago to tap that important market. We're looking as well in our diversification efforts to ensure that we provide sustainable jobs for young people, and that we're thinking not just within the traditional lines, but we're thinking outside of the box. And in addition to the Tier 3 data center, we've also constructed an innovation center to provide the necessary training and certification of our young people, to ensure that when that sector, the SQ sector, starts up, in partnership with our friends and our partners at TSTT and companies such as Huawei, that we have a cadre of trained and certified young people on the island for them to take up those high-paying sustainable jobs in the ICT sector.
Yeah.
And Deputy Chief Secretary, good morning. Carrie here.
Hi, Carrie. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks. In the bracket of education, innovation, and energy, I want to pinpoint energy itself. Being that Tobago does not have oil as one of their commodities to be used, what type of energy will you be focusing on when it comes to that bracket there of energy itself?
Well, Kerry, let me correct you. I can't support the statement that Tobago does not have oil because, but I'm aware that we have oil and natural gas resources around the country. But I think more importantly, a question is in terms of what are our plans in terms of using sustainable renewable energy
Yeah, that was
sources.
my next part of the question. So is there any plan to possibly use alternative sources of energy? Tobago has a lot of exposure to sunlight, for instance. Just as Trinidad, they are also means by which to generate
wind
and water
right.
as well.
Yeah, so most definitely in terms of looking at using alternative sources of energy, we're also looking at pilots as it relates to to moving away from fossil fuels. And the Department of Energy and one of their main officers, she has produced a very comprehensive paper in that regard as to how we can move away from fossil fuels. We're also in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Utilities. We are exploring a pilot program as to, in terms of which source, be it wind or solar. And I believe in the latter half of fiscal 2021, we'll be rolling out the plans because already we have supported one pilot program using solar energy, and that was done at the Signal Hill High School. We have plans to roll out other pilot programs using solar energy and to replace the traditional source at some schools in Tobago as a pilot. And additionally, what we're also doing is providing the necessary training programs to our students at the secondary and primary levels, exposing them to the new technology so that it could be deployed in a greater manner. So yes, we have plans. It has not been outlined in the budget because the challenge for us has been, Lisa, how do you treat with a 5-hour budget statement? How do you compress over a 5-hour statement into 90 minutes? And it has been difficult, and I'm here to contain the budget presentation to 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. But some projects and some issues, we were unable to input, and we had to reduce the size of the package. But most definitely, alternative energy is a focus of the Tobago House of Assembly. Because you could recall in our first iteration, in our first economic development planning document, that catchphrase, clean, green, safe, and serene. Mm-hmm. And our intention then at the time was to use clean and renewable sources of energy as a key driver in our policy statement. So again, we'll continue in that vein, and we'll continue ensuring that the island remains clean, green, safe, and serene, and that we continue to preserve the environment, and that we minimize the use of fossil fuels as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, in regards to the non-tax revenue, when we're looking at this bracket here, the total is 198.3 million. Are there any things that you could pinpoint in which that figure can be increased so as to improve the economic situation of Tobago?
Well, what we're looking at is to introduce a number of revenue-generating measures. Over the years, I would have outlined our policies to introduce fees to some of our natural parks and monuments. I remember receiving a call one Saturday morning from a Jamaican, and who was quite surprised that he could have visited all of Tobago's sites without paying a user fee, and he was highly annoyed. And that was one plan that we give a commitment to introduce. And the Department of Tourism have already the plans, and they started the process in that regard. Additionally, we have restructured quite successfully the Studley Park Quarry, and we have launched the Studley Park Enterprises Limited, and that quarry is a main revenue generator for the assembly. And so that what it means is that in the next 5 years or so, that we should see significant increases in our revenue stream, both tax and non-tax revenue, coming from revenues and dividends from that investment. And additionally, when we look at the revenue collection in Tobago, as I made the point, it does not reflect the true picture of economic activity on the island, given the fact that some of the taxes and duties that are generated in Tobago are paid in Trinidad, because some of the companies are satellite offices in Tobago, and those taxes and duties are paid by the head office. Additionally, the importation of goods into the island, everything is done primarily through Trinidad with a limited importation in Tobago, and most of that is accounted for in Trinidad. So in terms of the revenue generating economic activity generated, and as Carrie raised the point about the oil and gas, we have to look at not just the immediate numbers, but also to factor in that if we really disaggregate, some of the taxes and the duties paid for businesses in Tobago, that figure will be substantially larger.
Yeah, well, we have to jump in here now, Deputy Chief Secretary, and thank you very much for joining us, because we have a hard stop for 7 o'clock for the news. But I want to thank you for joining us to talk about the fiscal package.
It was a pleasure chatting with you, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Right,
yes.
Thank you.
That was Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance and the Economy, Assemblyman Joel Jack, joining us live from Tobago. We're going to go upstairs now for the news to the top of the hour.